Welcome, dear friends. Today I thought I'd show you just a quick way of making a lovely heart-shaped soap for Valentine's Day. And I'm not going to do any complicated soap making recipes. I'm simply going to use a bought bar of soap, and I'm going to show you how to use this to be able to make your own soap in your own shape. So you're going to first of all need a bowl, because we're going to grate the soap. So the next thing will be a grater that we're going to use. And then you'll need a mold or a shape of some sort. So I've got this heart-shaped cookie cutter. And then you're going to need just a little bit of water. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to start to grate the soap into my bowl. And I'm using this coarser side of the grater. And I'm just going to keep grating until I'm all done. So you just keep going. It goes actually quite quickly, and because the soap is nice and hard, it will actually be a nice consistency, so it's not terribly sticky. So let me just carry on with this. So I've grated all my soap, and as you can see, it's quite dry and evenly flaked. And the soap method I'm going to show you today is particularly easy because you're not really going to need anything other than what you've got in the kitchen. So if you have never tried soap making before and you don't actually have equipment such as molds and stuff, you won't need a lot that you don't have already. So I have a second bowl which is a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to spoon some of the soap into this bowl because we will be using a bit of water just now, and it's easy to add to this rather than subtract. I don't want to have too much, so I'm just going to set that aside for now. So you've got two different ways that you can do this. The first is the way that I'm going to show you today, which is the simplest, where you can actually just simply add some water to this and then we'll press it into the mold. The second is where we'll add water and you can do it in your microwave, but that's not always the easiest. So I've got just a dessert spoon here, and I'm taking about half a dessert spoonful of water, and I'm just going to mix this into the soap just to moisten it so that it starts to stick together, and you'll see when it starts to clump together as a ball. And this is really a fun thing to do with kids. It's so simple, and the joy of just having something that they've actually made themselves that they can use at bath time is great. I made some soaps the other day with my little granddaughter and she just loved it. So just wait until this starts to stick together. So you're wanting it to be kind of just damp but not wet, all right? Because the more moisture you've got, the longer it's going to take to dry and the softer your soap will become. So what I have next now is I have a sheet of baking paper, and I have a little cookie cutter mold, but into this little one, this soap which is already fragranced, I'm just going to take some lavender and I'm just going to pull the flowers off, just so that I've got a decorative element. And I'm not adding fragrances because, as I mentioned, this is already fragranced soap, but you could use some essential oils in there. Just make sure that obviously if you are pregnant that you're using ones that don't cause any harm to you during your pregnancy, or if you have any other medical conditions. But yeah, this is really simple. So I'm just going to add in some of these lovely little flowers. It's spring here, so the flowers are all lovely and fresh and brightly colored, which is absolutely joyful. And then I'm going to just mix some of this into my mixture that I have here already. So this first part that I'm doing now will be the top of the soap. And what we're going to do is to take this damp soap and we're going to press it into our cookie mold. So I've got that now, and we're just going to pack it down. So the size that I've got here would probably be more suited to a hand soap. And you're just going to press it down. Lovely, lovely little gifts. You'll see that as you start to compact it down, it starts to melt together, for want of a better description. And you want to press it down really, really firmly so that you don't have any little air bubbles. And when you turn your soap over the other way, that you haven't got gaps. Okay, so you're going to press this down as hard as you can into all the corners, like that, smoothing it out as you go. And This is also a lovely way to make gifts. So if a child is wanting to make a gift for a friend or a grandparent of some at some stage, this is just perfect. So you'll see that now that I've actually pressed it down into the mold, it is actually starting to look more like a soap, because all those little grated pieces are actually melding together without actually even having to melt the soap. So I'm just going to clean up the edges of my mold so I've got a nice clean edge when I remove it. And when I was teaching soap making back home in South Africa, we found the best thing to do was to pop this into the deep freeze for probably about an hour or so, maybe a little bit longer. And what that does is that it actually makes the soap incredibly hard, so that when you come to pop it out of the mold, it's really easy. And then the next thing you're going to need to do will be to just make sure that you leave it out to dry for a day or two, depending on your climate. If it's cold where you are at the moment, you're wanting to actually make sure that you put it next to a radiator, not on top of it, but just near to it where it can actually be warm. If I want to smooth this out now, I can just use a little bit of water on my finger. But you can see that that's going to be a really lovely little soap. So I'm going to go and pop that into the deep freeze, and then later on, once it's hardened, I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Well, I've had my little soap in the deep freeze for probably about 2 hours, because I got distracted and went off and did something else. And now I'm just going to gently start to ease the mold. So I find the easiest with molded things is just to gently pull the edges away, and whether you've got a metal mold or whether you've actually got a plastic one, you can do it quite easily. And then because your soap is nice and hard, you're just going to gently push this and let it slide out, and you'll see that that comes out quite nice and easily once you've just released a little bit around the edges. So there I have my pretty little soap. Now what you will find, because it's come out of the deep freeze, is that it's going to sweat a little bit, because it will have got cold, and any moisture that was on the outside of the soap is going to just form little droplets. Leave it on a piece of baking paper and just let it dry out for a day or two. So you have a lovely little gift to be able to give somebody. A little heart-shaped soap made with some lavender, and it's a gift good to go. Oh, one last thing, and I mustn't forget this. Once your soap has dried out completely, you need to wrap it tightly in cling film, and that will keep the moisture inside the soap so that it actually doesn't get too hard. Cellophane isn't so good, it tends to be quite messy, so rather use a little bit of cling film. Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Bye for now.